Welcome back to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is Glen Tinkle. We're going to talk with him about being a professional comedian. What's that like? He's also been a former clown and podcaster and done all kinds of fun things. I think I also saw in your Dry Bar special a teacher or something too. So lots of fun things to talk about. And he's got a new comedy special out on YouTube. So go check it out at Glen Tinkle on YouTube. For Playful Humans, it's playfulhumans.com. Go rediscover the power of play, take a playfulness quiz, and figure out how you can play for a living. That's what we'll be talking about. Here we go. All right, Glenn, we like to start with the joke of the week here on the Playful Humans podcast. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by UB40's song, Red, Red Wine. If you remember the song Red, Red Wine from when you were a kid, UB40. So that's good. All right.
Because
the official joke of the week is brought to you by Tickle Me Elmo. There were some issues with Tickle Me Elmo last year at the holiday season. So this year, each one will get 2 testicles. Here you go, Glenn. That's my tickle joke for you. Do you have a favorite street joke?
I think the year that doll was very popular was my freshman year of high school. And I'm like, that could not have worked out worse for me.
Yeah, that's not
my favorite street joke is, why did the Scarecrow get a promotion? He was outstanding in his field.
Oh, yeah.
It's great because it's a joke for children, but they don't understand. They don't get. They don't know what a promotion.
I found a lot of these jokes really go over kids' heads. They have to be really ridiculously simple. So I did see that on your Dry Bar special. Is that how you started your professional career? Was as a teacher and working with kids?
I worked as a substitute teacher for years out of college because I couldn't get another job, and it was.
Well, college is a little bit different than young kids and stuff,
well, I went to school for film, and then I didn't have like a ton of offers out of the gate because it turns out people weren't clamoring to hire writers and directors from mid-tier New Jersey state schools. So I did
for major motion pictures.
Yeah,
really,
I did need to turn to other employment. But I worked as a sub for years, and a lot of it was at like the preschool level, because for whatever reason, most substitute teachers, at least in my district, didn't want to go work at the preschool. And I'm like, I'll go there every day. It is you're just playing with little kids. Like, it's great. And they're like in-class aides. So like if a kid has an accident or something, like they're the ones who deal with that. Like you're walking them through their morning routine. It's great because like kindergartners know their schedule already. So there would be times I would show up, I cannot find the sub plans or whatever, and it's just like, guys, I don't know what we're supposed to do. They're like, we got it from here. There's always like one 5-year-old who will like happily take charge. She's like,
my niece is one of those. She's like, it's time for the snack.
That would be my older daughter. She's like, no, now we do the weather report, and it's Braden's turn. So Braden, look out, and it's like, you're just supervising. It's great. And it was the most, like the longest single subbing job I had. I was a preschool science teacher for almost the full school year. And that was so much fun because the sub plans ran out after like 2 weeks. So I'm like, I don't even know what you want me to teach these children. And they're like, it's preschool science, man. Just wing it. Just pick something sciencey. And it's like, you don't understand how qualified I am to do that. Like I was a nerdy little kid. I've seen every episode of Beakman's World and Bill Nye and Mr. Wizard because I'm old.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
all of that stuff. Yeah. Like I would just come in, and it was great because you'd have the classes for like half an hour, and then the next class would come in. So I was on a 4-day rotation where I would go through every class in this school. So let's say I come in Monday morning, start a new lesson. It's like, guys, I'm going to show you how to like put a piece of thread through an ice cube. And I start doing it that first couple classes on Monday. By the end of Thursday, I got it down. It is like a tight presentation. And then next, Friday, that Monday group comes back and I got to start over. And it's like
Make
with
something
something
else up again.
else. And it was like, it's pretty similar actually to like developing material on stage, where it's just like, here's a rough idea. I remember how to put a piece of thread through an ice cube with some salt from when I was a kid. So let me try to explain it in a way that I think you guys are going to understand. Oh, I'm wrong. You don't understand what that is at all. Okay, we got to break it down a little bit more. And then the next class gets the benefit of me having worked it out on the earlier classes. And then, the class that I had last in the rotation, they were getting all the best stuff.
They're like, yeah, they're getting the polished material. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
It does remind me a lot of how I started in performing too. So I started in storytelling competitions in school, and I would go from class to class practicing the story. And there were 8 grade levels and 2 classes of each. So I get to practice it 16 times. And by the time I was done, and then in high school, I went to this nerd camp where we taught science to inner city kids, and like summer programs and stuff, or out in the public, we'd do science demos with liquid nitrogen and stuff. And that's how I got to perform, was just in front of random.
I was doing that right up to the pandemic. Like in schools, I was working with a company that would do after school science demonstrations, or sometimes we'd come in like during the day and it would be like a school wide assembly. And it was just because like I had so much fun doing it when I was subbing. And also, as much as I love stand-up comedy, sometimes I do feel like it is maybe not the most beneficial job for the rest of the world. It's benefiting me greatly. But then when it's like, I don't know, I could be like a nurse or something, and I feel like I would be helping more people. So sometimes I will just...
You came to the right place, Glenn. I got the stats for you here, because we talk about this every single week. And like, loneliness is more hazardous than smoking a pack a day now. And there's like a friendship recession, and people are stressed out, and they really just need to like 5 minutes, set the phone down, pay attention to one thing, and laugh, and just like let those stress hormones like drop
I'll take
away.
your word for it.
But seriously, there is science behind this. They need it so bad.
I've done jobs where like I would work with seniors and like help them run errands and stuff. And it was just because it's like, I don't know. I love doing comedy. I get a lot out of it. I'm not sure the world does. So like, let me go do this other thing for a little bit so that I can, make myself feel better about what I feel is, a pretty selfish pursuit at times. And I know, like I've heard the stats. I know like other people enjoy comedy. I mean, especially like when I got out of college, before I was substitute teaching, I was doing like very little, like film production work. I would pick up like freelance stuff here and there. I was mostly just waiting tables and bartending, which I hated. And I know people who do it and really like it. I just did my friend Pat House's podcast. He's another comedian. He keeps, a few days a week as a regular shift at a bartender at the same place he's been working at for years, because he likes doing it. He's like, then I know, I have this at least bit of steady work if things slow down at comedy. And he's like, I enjoy the job. So like, I don't feel the need. It's not like, oh, I'm hoping my career blows up so I can leave this miserable job. I'm like, oh, that's great, man. I hated it when I had to do it though. I was like so bummed out during that period. And I've always listened to comedy, but like I started listening to a lot of it then. And that was when like, it was the same time like Marin started, WTF, and like there were a lot of new comedy podcasts starting. And that was like around the time it's like, I have always really liked comedy. Comedians are getting hired for these jobs that I want and am not getting. So what if I just go do that? And it was like so helpful to me to like be listening to so much comedy. And then when I started doing it myself, I was like, oh, I feel a lot better about my life and just things in general, because of how much time I am spending just thinking about what is funny, what do people think is funny, how do I make this story funny. It like, not overnight, but it had a pretty significant impact
Yeah,
when
there's actually a lot to unpack there, though, because I kind of saw the same thing when I was in the restaurant world. I saw every table as a little mini audience. Oh, I got 2 people, I got 4 people I can perform for here. Can I make them laugh? Can I make their night better? Can I, improve their mood? And can I
It's a
make the
better
most
way
amount
of
of money
thinking of it than
possible?
I did.
But I also realized that like the pay was terrible and the hours were terrible, and that was the same
Yeah.
thing for radio for me. And so I can see where somebody wants a little bit of structure in it. And it's funny because you're telling kind of the opposite story of what I think people listening to this podcast is like they have their day job and they get to go to a comedy show at the end as that little break from all of the other structure and
Yeah.
stress. And you're saying like, no, I need to go to a day job because I'm spending all of my day in comedy and frivolous and fun stuff. Like you
Yeah,
actually
I
need
mean,
a
it's
little bit
not
of
even
structure.
really it's not even like the structure that I'm looking for. It's like, I don't know, I do like helping
Meaning,
people.
yeah.
So I always I pretty regularly put out on social media. I was like, "Hey, like if anybody needs anything, I'm around." Like I don't have a lot
That's
going on
great.
right now. If any like uh anyone needs a favor, if you need advice on something, like feel free to reach out. Any listeners thinking about getting into comedy, I'm pretty easy to find on social media. I'm always happy to give people tips or whatever. And it's like I think when I started doing those other jobs, it was a lot of like comedy is pretty uncertain, so it is nice to have like reliable money where it's like, yeah, I know I'm gonna get paid this much because I have a regular job that pays a regular schedule. But with comedy, it's like last month, for example, I put out a comedy special. I did a bunch of comedy shows at colleges and like corporate gigs. Last month, very busy. This month, almost nothing going on in October for me. It's
Wait for the holiday parties and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I'm always busy in December because I do a ton of corporate holiday parties. I've already got stuff booked for next month. So it's like a couple of years ago, I would have probably been really stressed out right now about how little I have on my calendar for this month. But now it's like, I don't know. I was busy enough last month. It's fine. I have stuff booked in November. I know I'm going to be busy in December. It'll all probably work out, which is typically my view on most things. I'm like, it'll probably be fine, just based
That's
on
what it is for me is
40
like if
years
you
of
make enough
yeah,
money to get to keep doing it, then that's fine. You're living the dream and you're making stuff happen, and
yeah.
you can always
That's
go
always
back
been the
and take a
goal.
serious job or something, right? Or
Yeah,
fill in with other stuff like the subbing or other work that you're doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
The goal for me has always just been like, I just want like this to be my job. In like, I don't need to be the most famous comedian. The idea of being very rich has always felt gross to me. I'm like, if I make just like roughly a teacher salary, but I get to do it with comedy instead, uh, great. And that's kind of exactly where I'm at. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I was right. This is pretty good. I'm not making a
I
ton,
love that.
but
I
it's
think
like,
there's also I've had the experience of like you climb the corporate ladder so much that eventually you just realize that there's just more ladder. Like
yeah,
you're just grinding and
there's
trying
nothing up
to
there.
keep
The
climbing.
ladder
Like
doesn't
there's
go
nothing
anywhere.
up there. It's not leaning against anything. It's not you. At some point, you're gonna have to pick a point where you go, okay, I need to find the satisfaction and fulfillment somewhere else, or I just need to enjoy the journey and not look for a destination anymore. And that's really where I've been the last kind of 3 years since the pandemic and stuff too.
Yeah. Like, and I have a lot of friends who do regular jobs that they enjoy. Even my wife is a librarian and loves it. Um, but the idea of doing any other job besides comedy is kind of terrifying to me. Where only because the times that I've done other jobs, except for when I worked in video stores in high school and college, that I genuinely enjoyed
Nice.
and am very good at, but that is sadly not a career I can fall back on. Um,
No.
and every other job I think I've pretty much ever had, I'm like, "Oh, I'm miserable. Like, I don't like this." And so that's, I think, what I'm afraid of more than having to do
Can you
any
define what
actual
it is
job.
about the comedy? Is it the physical nature, the social stuff? I mean, I can put up the link. We have a playfulness quiz of there's different things that like some people enjoy the writing and they enjoy like putting these puzzle pieces together. Other people prefer the performing or I find acting on video is a lot more like radio, where you're in a room by yourself. You're on a set with a few people. The audience isn't there. You don't even get to hear them laugh. I
Right.
have to do things live. I have to get that audience feedback and stuff. That's the part that I enjoy the most. What about for you?
The attention. It is it's absolutely that. When I started doing open mics and realized like, oh, I can just have a thought right now and say it and find out immediately if you guys like it. Also, like everyone in this room has to pay attention to me right now or you get kicked out. Like it's great.
Yeah,
It
I have a
is
loud microphone. Yeah.
yeah, and it's that I think is the big appeal. I do like the immediacy versus like I do film and media work sometimes um still, but the thought that if you write a script, it can be years before you find out if anybody likes that joke that you put on page 4 because you got
Hmm.
to write it, then you got to rewrite it. Maybe you get the chance to shoot it, then you got to get a crew together and cast it, and then you got to edit it, and that can take months. And then maybe if you're lucky, it gets into some film festivals. And then if you're still lucky, people will go to that screening, and then maybe they will react to the thing, and that can take literal years. And it's I've done it. It's worthwhile in the end. Like it is great to put that much time and effort into something and then watch it pay off on screen, but it is hard for that to compete with the immediacy of, I don't know, I have a microphone right now and you guys have to listen to me. So do you guys like this? Do you guys like Jurassic Park as much as me? And then you just find out right away, and it's great.
I did enjoy it. I feel like we're in at least a similar age range and taste and stuff too.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to your favorite science experiment, but before we do that, tell me more about comedy, because I also think it's interesting for me. I love like podcasts like this where it's a different experience every time and it changes. Sometimes I feel like comedy ends up being like a musician or a band where you have to play the same hits over and over again. And I
You
don't want to
can,
make
yeah.
you do your bit, but I love your bit about your name, and I'm sure told that joke, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of
Oh,
times
a
at this
bunch.
point. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like what do you enjoy the structure, or do you enjoy throwing it all out, recording putting the special out and burning it? What's it like as a regular creation
I
process?
I do get tired of bits, but usually not forever. It is just like if I do enough
Burnout.
shows in a row where I do a joke, it'll be like, I don't want to do that one tonight. And I mean, one of the benefits to the job is like I don't have to. No, there's not.
Yeah,
If
nobody
I
knows what you were gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm getting to a point in my career now where like sometimes people will know me from something. Whereas before the pandemic, I could count on one hand the number of times that happened where it was like a person who knew who I was but didn't also know my dad or whatever. There's just like, no, I saw this clip on, a thing and now I'm here to see you. Now it happens pretty regularly, I would say. It's not like a ton of people, but I pretty regularly at a show, a couple people be like, "Oh, we saw you on Dry Bar, so we came out tonight." And it's like, "Well, I was gonna do some of those jokes, so I
Yeah,
guess
and that's
now
okay. I
now
mean,
I
some of them
won't."
you wanna see some of that. I
That's
know I'm
yeah.
like that with every comedian. I'm like, I know, or I brought my friend because I want my friend to hear
When
your
I was
joke. Yeah.
starting out, there was this real idea of like, no, once you put it on a CD or something, it's done. And I don't think that's ever true. Like, I don't think that
Mhm.
was ever the case. I think it was a weird rule that somebody made up along the way that a bunch of people just decided was true. And it's like, no, because I did a comedy festival years ago that Jerry Seinfeld was the headliner for. So I went to his show. I got to bring my mom, she's not like a big Seinfeld fan. She was just impressed that I could get her into
A
the big
Seinfeld show.
headliner
Yeah.
show at the festival. He was doing bits from Seinfeld, like from the stand-up interstitials on episodes of Seinfeld. I was like, my guy, that joke was 20 years old when you put it on the show 30 years ago. And the
Yeah.
audience didn't care. They still laughed. They were still super into it. And
you get a different sort of familiarity, like when your favorite song comes on and you're like, oh, this is my jam, or oh, I'm so glad he did this. I got to see it live because that's one of my favorite bits from the show and stuff. And I think there's also this part where you hear it differently, or there's irrelevance. So what I love, and I talk to other kind of creators about and stuff, is that even somebody like Taylor Swift, that's huge, most people have not heard a Taylor Swift song in the world. Or even you look at Facebook, they have 1 billion users. Well, there's 9 billion people on the planet. So 90% of the earth has never heard of Facebook before. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you
like my
don't
Dry Bar
have
special,
a repeat problem. You have a relevancy problem. Most people need to hear your best stuff.
My Dry Bar special has a million something views on YouTube. And I'm like, that's great. Like, that's a really big number. It makes me feel good. But those 1 million people are probably not at this show. And
that's less than 1/3% of the United States. Right?
Yeah. It's like, it's 1/10 of the number of people who live in Manhattan. And it's like, if I'm doing a show there, maybe a couple of them had seen it, but I think there's been, besides that Seinfeld show, I saw it's a comedian I really like, and I don't want to say who it was, but they did the show, and they just like verbatim did one of their albums, and that I'm like, I'm disappointed as like a fan who, and thankfully it was at a venue that I perform at a lot, so they let me in for free, so I didn't it's not like, oh, I paid money and now I'm just hearing. It was like,
$75 to hear that album I just listened to last night. Yeah.
It's like part of what I want when I see a comedian is to hear, what they're working on now. Or I do, because sometimes, stuff gets recorded. Maybe you missed the line. Maybe you kept working on the bit after the album came out. And it's like, if I get to hear an alternate version of something, great. Like that's fun. But this was like word for word an album that they did years ago. And it's like, what? This is kind of a disappointment. But I think for the most part, not like, I get tired of hearing, if it's like friends of mine that I bring and we do shows together a lot, I might get sick of their jokes because I've heard them dozens of times, but it's not because I don't like them. It's like, we did a show together last night too. And I know. I remember that joke from last night and also from 10 years ago when you wrote it at the open mic we were doing. And it's not it's a bad bit, or I don't think they should stop doing it. It's just like,
if it's still crushing and it's still getting laughs, like, keep doing it. But I think there is a certain amount of mixing in new stuff and trying new things. You can't just do the whole thing.
Because I have the bit that I end the Dry Bar special and also my first album on is a story of a guy who heckled me once, and I've been making audiences yell at him for years, and I film it, and it is so fun to do. It is. I literally make the audience scream that they love me by name and that they are mad at this guy. And he blocked me on social media years ago, because of course he did. But
I was gonna say, like, did you ever find and like close the bit? So if it's not, like, leave it open. But even so,
and it's like, this has been recorded now multiple times. I'm not gonna put it on another album, but if you see me live, there's a real good chance I'm still gonna do that bit at the end, because it's real fun. If you ever figure out a way to trick a room full of people into screaming that they love you, it feels incredible.
Oh yeah, those are my favorite bits. And my nemesis, by the way, is Billy Idol. He fired me live on stage one time in 2005, and if I ever get the chance, I need to work some sort of revenge bit. Maybe I'll go back. I think I did watch your entire special, maybe, if that was the end, or at least I saw that clip. I'm gonna have to, work on
the Dry Bar is pretty short. I think it's like 25 minutes. Next time I do it, I'll make people yell at Billy Idol.
There you go.
I've done different versions of it because I have comedian friends who they like. One of my best friends is a comedian named Jason Brown who hates that bit. He's like, it's so dumb. It's not funny. I'm like, you're wrong. It is, but it's also,
it is to me.
It's also really fun. And it, just from like a practical standpoint, it makes people scream my name at the end of the show. So like my name is pretty easy to remember to begin with because it's dumb, but just from like a practical business standpoint of like at the end of the show, I make the whole room scream my name and that they love me. So then, yeah, like I'm hopefully building brand awareness. Not that that's the
Oh, I think you
goal, but
are for sure. And there's also nothing wrong with you can't do the whole show self-indulgent, but there's nothing wrong if you're a performer and there's something that you just like and it
yeah.
makes you get a kick out of it. Like I think it's funny when I do game shows and other things. There's some things that are just for me. And I was like, one in like 100 people in the audience laugh or they think it's funny. And those are the cool people that I go, you know
Yeah.
what? You got that one. That one was just for you and me. And these other 99% of the people, that's okay.
There's
They
a
got
lot of
other
that.
jokes. There's other jokes in the show for them.
Yeah.
This one's for me.
There's a lot of that in my act, I would say,
Yeah.
of stuff that uh ends up being just for me, but it is because I a lot of times I will start doing a bit with the assumption that everyone also knows what I'm talking about.
Right.
The special that I just put out last month, there's a bit about the Great Emu War of 1932, which I thought we all learned about in elementary school. Like in whatever book I read that in, I was like, so I used it as like a throwaway line in a different joke, and the first couple times I did it, silence. Like not even like we didn't like that joke. It's we didn't understand that was supposed to be a joke. We genuinely don't know what you're talking about. Now we're all confused. So it like grinds things to a halt. And I'm like, did you guys not know that Australia lost a war to birds? And they're like, what? And so then the bit evolved into like I still do that line in the other bit because then people don't react and then I get to talk about a thing that I want to talk about anyway. And it's like, yeah, admittedly, this is kind of just for me, but the challenge in it is okay, most audiences don't know about this thing. How do I teach them about it enough that the joke works, but it can't just be a boring history lesson. Like I have to make it
Right.
interesting. And I've done that over the years a couple of times. I do a bit with my daughter's toy robot where I make him tell a bunch of jokes, and they're like dumb robot puns. And the reason I did it is like because
I
I
like it
thought
already.
of I thought of a bunch of dumb robot puns for my daughter's little toy, and I'm like, audiences are going to think these are dumb if I just say, "What did robot Beethoven name his Ninth Symphony? Diode to Joy." Like that's a dumb joke. I can't make a room full of like adult comedy fans genuinely laugh at that, but I can trick them into laughing at. If I put a toy robot
Yeah.
on stage and I tell you this belongs to my 4-year-old daughter, and then I'm going to show her the video of this show later, because she thinks her robot travels the country telling jokes to people, then you have to laugh at that joke, whether you like it or not, and people would. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is admittedly pretty indulgent for me and fun for me more than the jokes themselves are funny. But the challenge of like, can I make this theater of people laugh at a really stupid joke as if it's the funniest thing they've ever heard in their life? And yeah, because like you said, sometimes you get tired of material or the repetition of it all. It's like, "Nah, I need a challenge here. I got to do what's the
Yeah.
weirdest thing I can
Well,
get
and
away
there
with."
should be different. To me, good shows have ups and downs. So there's ones that are challenged that make you think. There's one that are easy, just fun, like you said, a stupid pun that's
Yeah,
a throwaway joke or something,
that's like all the name
and
jokes that I
surface.
usually
And
open with.
I try to, I don't necessarily make people cry ever, but like I want some serious moments and then I want
Yeah,
to bring them back up. And like when you've been doing it a while, you want those different flavors in your act, and you want ones for you, one for them, ones that are long, ones that are short, and up your laughs per minute and all kinds of stuff. Great stuff. My last question for you though is, what
sure.
advice would you give for somebody that's always wanted to do it and never did? Like they're back where you are, saying like, oh man, I love this. Or maybe even I watched Glenn's special and he's so funny. I'm funnier than he is. How
Oh
can
yeah,
I
I've
get
seen
up
those
there?
comments on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. What advice would you give those people that haven't tried it yet?
Just go do it. There's probably an open mic at a bar or something near you, or your local comedy venue probably has one, or you can just call a bar, ask what night they have, available, and see if they'll let you host an open mic. because the stakes are so low. It is. I teach stand up sometimes, and that is like the one thing I want people to take away from it is like everyone is so worried about getting on stage, because I understand that other people have stage fright. Like that's never been a thing for me, so it's not like I had to overcome my fear of public speaking. I've just never minded, because I crave attention from strangers. But I think it's nothing bad's gonna happen. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, how do you deal with hecklers?" It's rare. Like, that the story that I make everybody yell at the guy happened, I think it was like 6 or 7 years into comedy. No, 2, because I started in 2009, it happened in 2011. I was like a couple years in, and that was like maybe the 4th or 5th time I'd been heckled. The thing that happens is if you're not doing a good job, people pull their phones out and they ignore you. That's the worst case.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It's a line from it's a Christian football movie, actually, but the kid who's talking about trying out for the football team, and his dad's like, "You're not gonna get any more not on the team than you are right now. Like
Yeah.
you have nothing to lose." And I feel like people are already not laughing. So if they don't laugh at your joke,
Yeah.
they literally have nothing to lose.
It doesn't feel good when you say a joke into a microphone and don't get the reaction that you want. That doesn't feel good, but it's like it's not that big of a deal. You get over it pretty quick. And the idea of like bombing at an open mic is really hard, because like to truly bomb, you have to get the audience not only not interested in what you're saying, you have to get them to turn hostile towards you specifically, which is that's a challenge.
It's pretty
Like,
hard. Yeah.
yeah, the thing that happens most often is people just aren't paying attention. And that happens like still, you're not going to win everybody, especially if you're trying to tell people about the emu war of 1932 or whatever. And it's like my advice is genuinely just go do a couple open mics, see how it feels, and either you will keep doing it and you will get better, or you will realize that you don't really want to be doing it, and that's fine too. Like
Yeah.
the
Love it.
stakes could not
All
be
right, we
lower
got
than open
one
mic
more thing
comedy.
to do here before we wrap up. We need to play a game, but I will also admit that the first time you said emu war, I thought you said emo war, like they
Uh,
went to war
they
with the
just
Goths,
Yeah,
which
they're just
would be a
beating up a
lot
bunch
more
of sad
interesting as well.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stop listening to my
it sounded like
Make
the sad kids fighting in a war.
Yeah.
It's like I missed that. Okay, it's time to play a game. We landed on 2 truths and a lie
Yes.
this time. Do you want to go first or second?
I will go second, because you actually revealed one of mine in the intro. So I
Okay. Yeah, that happens sometimes
gotta
too.
pull an
And
audible.
I picked some random stuff that I haven't mentioned here. I played soccer in high school and was actually pretty good. I was on a good team. We had 3 fun facts for you. You got to find out which one was the lie. Number 1, our soccer team set a state record for the fastest win in Missouri state soccer history. We scored 10 goals in less than 20 minutes, and they were like, you know what? Normally we wait till halftime, but we're just going to wrap it up here. This is getting ugly. Number 2, we scored more goals than the football team had points for the first half of the season. Our football team was so bad they had only scored a couple of field goals, and we had more points in soccer, scoring 1 at a time than they did. Number 3, I scored the fastest goal in Missouri soccer history right off the kickoff. I just cranked it and scored 3 seconds into the game, the time it took the ball to get to the net.
I'm gonna say that's the lie.
Ooh, you are good at this one.
You did a
Yes,
weird
we
pause
did
at the
score
end.
in 7 seconds, but there was 1 pass involved.
Got it. I'm proud because the football one I thought might have been true, but I'm like, just because you get more points in football. I don't know a lot about sports,
So I had
but
to make that true. I had to adjust that it was half the season, because at one point they played a really bad team and they won like 70-35, and they obviously scored more
yeah,
points than we did. But we definitely had more goals than they had touchdowns. That's for sure.
I think the half the season part is what convinced me that it is true, because it
Yeah,
seemed so specific.
I'll have to
If
figure out
that
another way to
wasn't
do that.
if that wasn't in there, I think I would have picked that one. as the lie.
All right. What about yours?
Sure. These are not all on the same theme. The one that you revealed was the I was going to include that that I've worked as a children's birthday clown, which is true. You said
We
that
didn't
at
talk about that.
no, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Some jobs you can get just by lying, but these are my three that I have competed twice in the Dr. Mario World Championship and finished in the top 10. I have worked with Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I went to space camp as a child.
Oh, we know that you did a lot of science stuff there, and I'm gonna say you could have run into Bill Nye at one of these kind of things. That sounds plausible to me. The first one also sounds plausible to me by the ages that we are. So if in high school you really nerded out on Dr. Mario, maybe even been pre high school there for us. So I am gonna go with the Dr. Mario's the lie. I think that's too early.
No, that is true.
Dang
The
it.
lie was space camp.
Oh, see, I had
I
those two
wanted
justified. I
so
should've gone with
badly to go to space camp as a child, but never went. And then I was writing for a site called Geekosystem years ago, and I forget. I think it was maybe National Geographic reached out to one of my. I was running the site, and so one of my writers, like one of my employees, they reached out to her specifically. Were like, "Do you want to come to space camp and write about it for this campaign?" And I was like, "Hey, wait a minute. What about what about me, the guy who runs the site? Can I?" But I can't because I wouldn't. You have to like pass a physical and stuff, and I would not do that because my spine is a mess. They wouldn't. I would die in that spinny thing. So my friend Victoria got to go to space camp, and I didn't, and I'm still kind of jealous about it. I did work with Bill Nye. If you look up Bill Nye Bow Tie Race on YouTube, you get to watch me embarrass myself in front of my childhood hero. And the Dr. Mario thing is true. I competed in the World Championship in 2020 online. And
2020
finished,
online. Holy
yeah.
cow. I thought this was like OG Mario.
No, this was
Wow.
it
Yeah,
was
that's
they were holding events in Pittsburgh every year and I was going to go, but then the pandemic shut it down, so they did it online. So I entered and I finished in the top 10. I have a little patch to show for it, and I have a modded cartridge of Dr. Mario that has an ultra fast speed added on. And then I competed in person 2 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, and it is happening again next month in Columbus, and I hope to be there. I haven't like booked travel or
That's funny.
but
That's amazing. I should have gone with my gut. I knew space camp, but I felt like you would have really wanted to go. That's what made that one
yeah, I
true. And
did
then you
desperately.
have a lot of time on your hands to practice for Dr. Mario
I'm
and science
very
experiments.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I think I've brought it up on stage. I don't know if the specifics about being in the top 10 are in the bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I got it the year it came out, 1990. I thought it was an elaborate ruse to try to trick my parents into getting us a color television for our bedroom because the
Ooh.
Nintendo was hooked up to a black and white TV. And Dr. Mario, of course, a color-based game.
Yeah.
But I overthought how much my parents were gonna realize the mechanics of the video game I asked them for. They just bought it, and then I would try to play it on our black and white TV, which is nigh impossible. You can tell which ones are red, but yellow and blue are very difficult to parse out. And I just got I'm crazy good at this one game. I'm not good at most video games or things in life, but oh boy, can I stack some pills.
That is great. I feel the same way. My parents would never buy me a Nintendo, so I'm only good at like Tetris and really easy games. Like when Bond came out in college, like
Yeah,
I would spawn and people just shoot me in the head, and I'm like, this is dumb. I don't understand. I can't do any of these competitions against other people games.
that's how
But
I feel about most online
even
stuff.
two truths and a lie, you won in sweep here, which means you get a free 30-second commercial for yourself. You want to tell us about the new special on the YouTube channel or however we
Sure.
can help you or you can help us?
You can check out my new special, Glen Tinkle Against the World Crime League, on my YouTube channel, just youtube.com/Glen Tinkle. It is a bad title that I've had to explain. It is the never produced sequel to my favorite movie, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, because they really thought this was going to be like a huge franchise, but instead it lost like $16 million, and I'm the only one who likes it. So they never made that movie. So, but it says in the credits of the first one, it says, watch for Buckaroo's next adventure, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Against the World Crime League. And then they never made it. So when I was editing the credits for my last special, Good Grief, in the credits for that, it says, watch for Glen Tinkle's next adventure, Glen Tinkle Against the World Crime League, which was just a joke. But then when I was doing another special, I'm like, well, I don't have a better title. I'll just stick with that one. And then in the credits of this one, it says, watch for Glen Tinkle's next adventure, Glen Tinkle live in Budapest, which I don't know anybody there. I don't have any way of making that happen, but I figured if I put it in the credits, somebody will email me eventually. So if anybody knows any comedy venues,
and that's where you
Budapest,
picked to go.
Hungary.
You could have picked anywhere, and that's
I'm trying to get Hungarian citizenship because my great grandparents came from there, and it seemed like as good of a midlife crisis as any. So that's
amazing. I love that you're doing that. And that's the type of stuff that I love. So you can't see back here, but I have, Steve Martin and Bare Naked Ladies stuff,
favorite
Dave Barry comedians and people that are like really smart, but also when they tie things together. The Bare Naked Ladies released a box set greatest hits album before they had any greatest hits. And so they had a song about what would be the names of the greatest hits, and that your six discs are like, we come out of retirement and do a holiday album. And so then they named their future albums after the ones in the song about a greatest hits album. So I love that kind of stuff. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for listening. You made it all the way to the end. We got a your personality style, or you can take the burnout quiz and see how done you are. Are you medium rare? Are you well done? See how burnt you are right now at playfulhumans.com/quiz. Until next time, share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it. Go do some stand-up comedy just for fun, or if you can't be good at it. That's what I always say. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine.